favor, me beija a boca. Que louca, que louca. Eu quero é viver em paz. Por favor, me beija a boca. Que louca, que louca. Tererê, 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 Thank you. Hello, 1, 2. Can you hear me all right over there? Eu quis amar, mas tive medo e quis deixar meu coração, mas o amor sabe um segredo, pois é, o medo pode matar o seu coração. Água de beber, camarada, água de beber, água de beber, camarada. Pai do dão, dão dei, pai abundei, pai do dão, dão dei, barabundei, pai do dão, babudão, babudão. Pai do dão, dão dei, pai abundei, pai do dão, dão dei, pai abundei, pai do dão, babudão, babudão. Nunca fiz coisa tão certa. Entrei pra escola do perdão. A minha casa vive aberta, pois é, abre todas as portas do coração. Água de beber, camarada, água de beber, camarada. Pai do dão, dão dei, pai abundei, pai do dão, dão dei, pai abundei, pai do dão, babudão, babudão. Pai do dão, bom dei, pai abundei, pai do dão, dão dei, pai abundei, pai do dão, babudão, babudão. Pai do dão, bom dei, pai abundei, pai do dão, dão dei, pai abundei, babudão. Pai do dão, dom dei, pai abundei, pai do dão, dom dei, pai abundei, pai do dão, babudão, babudão, camarada.
All right. Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Seal Beach Center for Spiritual Living. You know, for musicians, there's a reason why, you know, we love to play music. It requires so much dedication and attention. And we are just so pleased this morning. My name's Alan Busey. I play the violin and the piano, as you probably know. And we are graced this morning with two Brazilian musicians who are new friends of mine. Please welcome on the piano, Mika Muti. Mika has been in LA for about a year and a half under a special dispensation, he's been working closely with Sergio Mendes on his new album. And he is all my Brazilian friends have just been raving about him. They said, you got to bring this guy, you got to play with him. And so it's really my pleasure to learn, from my colleagues. And then we have Angelo Metz, who teaches at a school where I teach as well. He's a wonderful musician and singer. You can see him all around Los Angeles, and he's a producer. And we're very fortunate to have him. And he lives in a fantastic house in West Hollywood. We all went over there and rehearsed, which is just such a pleasure for us to be able to actually know what we're doing when we get up here. And we'll talk a little more about our young students in a minute. But for now, we're going to play I Release, and we want Victoria to come up, and we can start the groove. We'll get there. The band to play like this cool music because it makes me sound like a much better speaker than I am. And it's my pleasure to be here this morning. We have on drums, we want to introduce Matthew Lucas. What high school are you from, Matthew? He's from Redondo Union High School, and he studies at the Coburn School. He's a very gifted young artist. And we have Jasper Talwani here on bass. Jasper studies as well at the Coburn School. He's an accomplished pianist, and you will hear him sing. These are some very gifted musicians. It's our pleasure to be here, and we welcome Michael.
It's that time of the service where you stand and turn to your neighbor and say, "Welcome to the best day ever." If this isn't the start of the best day ever, I don't know what is. Welcome, Alan Bustede, and yet another cast of beautifully talented musicians he brought with him. Thank you, Alan, so much. We have a great program for you today. Alan's bringing the music with all of his multi-talented friends. Travis is a practitioner today. He will do the invocation. Cindy Stevens will do the Sacred Covenant for us. And so we have a wonderful program, as I said, for you today. And if there aren't any first-time visitors, we want you to know that you are certainly welcome here. The one thing that we're very proud of is that we're a very inclusive community here. We have this belief that there's this golden thread of truth that weaves its way through all the religious and spiritual expressions, and that we're all revealers of the divine. So if you're here for the first time, absolutely know that you are welcome. And know that we have a gift package for you on the back table. So if you haven't got it, you can come see me afterwards and we'll get you one. Anyway, welcome here. And Ernest Holmes tells us, prepare your mind to receive the best that life has to offer. And believe me, you need to do this for this program today. The music is outstanding. The talk is outstanding. We have a very special guest giving the talk. I'm going to talk a little bit more about him later. It's my very dear friend, Reverend Scott Olson. And before we get started, I have a few announcements to cover. Today is the town hall meeting, so it's 12:30. So any questions you have about the transition of the church, the Leadership Council will be here to answer all your questions and present the path forward. Now I have two in-person announcements. Let me bring Travis to the stage to talk about the movie he's presenting.
Good morning. Well, we're presenting Greg Braden's really fine film, The Secret of Miracles, next Friday night at 6:30. In this film, Greg Braden has traveled the world and delved into the religious traditions that are ancient and discovered that along with his research on emerging science of the way that we really work in a dynamic, deep way, that religion and science really is coming together in these days. It's a very profound experience. I first saw this film at the Inglewood Church some years ago with about 70 practitioners, and we were all really almost stunned by how profound it was in causing us to have a deepening of our convictions and kind of upping our game. I did show this yesterday and found that same result. People were really surprised at the impact it had on how they saw themselves personally, the power that they have, and even responsibility to the one by their own choices and how we're all connected. If you saw this film yesterday or ever, and you highly recommend it, would you stand up? And so don't take my word for it. You know, ask any of these folks. And I invite you to come next Friday night at 6:30 for an experience which holds a lot of potential for being transformational for you in 90 minutes. I don't know if you can beat that. So please come. Thank you.
And now let me invite Reverend Donner to the stage to tell us about the class she's starting and a Wednesday night service.
Good morning. This Wednesday evening, we are having a special guest. It's a concert. It's Anton Mizerock and Laura Berryhill. If you've never heard their music, I encourage you to come. They're from Mount Shasta. They talk about mythology of religion and mythology of music and Celtic songs, and then they perform them. They have amazing instruments that they bring with them to perform. They sing, they chant. There's a harmonica, flute. There's a couple other Tibetan bowls. So if you have an opportunity to come hear them, please do. It's this Wednesday evening at 6:30. They'll probably go a little bit later than 7:30, probably closer to 8. But you feel free to leave at any time if you need to. But they're very engaging. It's very peaceful, very meditative, and it's heart-opening. So I encourage you to attend if you can. And then on Thursday, April 12th, Marjorie, Ray, and myself will be teaching the power of your word. And for those of you who know, I love to pray. And the class is all about prayer. It's how to pray for yourself, for others, digs a little bit deeper into prayer and how we pray in our denomination, as well as what beliefs maybe we bring into our denomination. And it's an interactive experiential class. It's 8 weeks. It starts on April 12th and it goes until May 31st on Thursday evening, 6:30 to 8:30. And if you have any questions, please ask Marjorie or myself. Our phone numbers are on the back of the program, and we're excited to present this with you. So thank you.
And the last general announcement, we are having our annual fundraiser the second Saturday in June. And for those of you who haven't been to our fundraisers, they're fun first, and we raise money in the meantime. And so we're open for business. Come see someone at the back, very colorful table. Thank you, Janice. Come see them, and we're selling tickets today. And now it's a time where we need to move into the meditative part of the service. And we've lit the memorial candle early for the 9 o'clock service for Reverend Doris Avery, who was a longtime congregant and dear, dear friend of the center. And so now, if you will, just join with me and just go within for a moment. And know the power and the presence of the divine is with Doris and her beloved family right here and right now. We were blessed to have her in our experience, and we are thankful. And we know that the power of the divine is with all of us right here and right now in the spirit moment. And now we will be led by the Sacred Covenant by Cindy Stevens, some music by Alan, and the invocation is by Travis.
There is only one life. This life is good. This life is God. This life is my life now. In knowing that I am one with the life that is God, I therefore know that I am one with all of its blessed expressions, which includes the presence of a new minister for my beloved Jewel by the sea. Because I know that the highest purpose of my new minister is to glorify God, I therefore know that my new minister is a revelation of God as wholeness. I further know that my new minister is the fulfillment of that which has been promised by God, for it is written, "We see a world in which every person lives in alignment with their highest spiritual principle. All human endeavor is to find such an inward wholeness that all sense of fear, doubt, and uncertainty vanishes." As I stand in agreement with my beloved community, I see my new minister revealed before me as a wise and loving presence, God's consciousness in expression. I now intend to experience my new minister in full cooperation and agreement with my community, knowing this truth about myself, for I am inspired to live as love in the expression of wholeness. I am awakening the wisdom within me. I am applying the power of love through wisdom. I am connecting with, loving, and serving our local communities. I am creating an inclusive, loving environment for individuals and families and a thriving youth program. I am exploring the mystical teachings of different traditions. I am fostering an elevated music program that aligns with the message. As I now accept the highest expression of a new minister into my life, I know that they are revealed in a way that will glorify God and serve the highest and greatest good for all who are touched by their presence. I am grateful. God is gracious. Amen.
Good morning again. I'd like to draw your attention to magnificent creation. We all see it. We all hear it. We all feel it deeply when we walk along the shore, when we walk in parks, or ski in the mountains, or gaze into the heavens at night. We all behold magnificent, wondrous creation. And it has been said by many teachers we would not be able to appreciate all that unless it had a reality in ourselves. So rightfully understood, that upon which we look with appreciation is a mirror of what we are, and therein lies the appreciation itself. Another point might be that as we look into the stars and behold the vastness of space, that is matched by the infinite depth of the being of each one of us. And so with appreciation for the profound presence of that one life, let's move into the silence. And so I bless this sacred experience of Sunday morning at this center and honor all those who have chosen to be here to make it more of a gathering than it would have been. For every person is integral and important in this community, in this sanctuary, and even in this whole global community. Every person is important. Every person integral to the whole. And so I embrace this view of life that places me at the center of my universe as a center of joy and wisdom, beauty, perfection, balance, and harmony. I also bless those who have made preparations for this wonderful service, particularly for our music this morning, but also serving the youth and serving the refreshments after our service, and all those practitioners that are available to our congregation. Also bless Reverend Scott as he allows Spirit to have its way with him and be expressed uniquely in his words this morning and reach every person in their hearts. And so in appreciation for this one life upon which we can get a firm grasp in these moments, in full appreciation, I embrace it, I love it, I run with it and say, and so it is.
young musicians. We have additional music. Sing, sing, sing. No guitar? Yes. Right. We have a couple groups going on, and you got to excuse me. I'm like an octopus with many arms. And these are my young students from the East Los Angeles Performing Arts Magnet High School. I was gifted with some new students whom I'm able to lend a hand to, and frankly, I learn more from them than they from me, but that's beside the point. We want to welcome, again, Jasper Talwani is our bass baritone. We have Victoria Mestas. Victoria has a internship at the Los Angeles Opera right now, and she has a tremendous amount of experience in musical theater and in church. Victoria Mestas. We have Natalie Metcalf. Natalie, I went to see their advanced choir at the high school, and Natalie had a solo in one of their numbers, and she was dancing and singing and looking at this imagined audience, which was me, and she was just selling it. Please welcome Natalie Metcalf. Excuse me, Natalie. And we have. What's your last name, Layla? Talon. My talons are not out, but we have Layla Talon on. She's a lyric soprano, and she was the first one that was introduced to me. And I think we have Could you stand up? We have Carolyn McKnight. She's the principal of the high school, and she introduced me to the school, and with a warm welcome. And she said, you have to hear Layla sing. She is just amazing. And she's a lyric soprano with all kinds of things going on, so many that I don't know what they are yet. We've been working together for a month, and she's going to sing soprano. We're going to do Sing, 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 which also, by the way, we have a couple of numbers that we're doing here today that represent to musicians a lot. The famous Carnegie Hall concert of Benny Goodman doing Sing, Sing, Sing with Gene Krupa on drums is one of the one of the top 4 or 5 highlights of the entire jazz music tradition in the United States. And I thought, why not start at the top? So this is our first time out. Give us a little room here. But we're going to try Sing, Sing, Sing by Louis Prima. Here we go. And we want to get our mics in order. Right. In case it helps. Yes. We want to get plenty for the sopranos. Right. Can everyone cross their fingers? Oh, yeah. How do I do this introduction?
All you got to do is sing.
Thank you. Are we blessed here? Oh, thank you, Alan. And in all the excitement, we actually have one more thing to share with you before I introduce Scott. This is Reverend Peggy's last Sunday before she moves to Hawaii. So she's going to share with us just a little bit around the offering. And so anyway, Reverend Peggy, thank you for all the years of service, all the triage you've done for this church. You mean so much to this church, and from the bottom of my heart, you've meant so much to me. Thank you so much. And now we have a really very special guest, Scott Olson, Reverend Scott Olson. So, the formal introduction is he has the pleasure of serving as assistant minister at the Laguna Woods Church with Reverend Dr. Linda McNamara, which is a gift in itself. But Reverend Scott was my running buddy to go through the ministerial school journey. And so we traveled back and forth to Encinitas, to the conventions, everything together, stayed in some very nice places and some not so nice places. And like most ministerial students, we had it all figured out. And we said, when we get out, we're going to do it this way. But Reverend Scott, it was just such a pleasure to have that growth experience with you. I can't think of anyone I'd rather do. So please give a warm welcome to Reverend Scott Olson. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. How are you today? So, I was thinking back at the first service, and it still holds true that I feel like I've come home in some odd way. This has never been my spiritual home here. But I know Reverend Michael and Nicole so well, and I know a number of people that are here through, traveling around doing things in ministerial school. And I was also thinking that the very first time I showed up here was about 15 years ago when Reverend Sonny Cantrell did the Enlightenment here. And so I've had a bit of a history with Seal Beach, and it's really good to come and be home. Isn't it nice to be home wherever you are? Yeah. So today's talk title is Shoot for the Moon. And how I got the talk title was I was listening to a video, and it had a quote in it by Norman Vincent Peale that says, "Shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you'll land among the stars." Right? And I grabbed onto that quote, and I really liked it, and I put it into a list of things that I use. I keep a long list of potential talk titles and things that I want to say in those talks. And so I've been bumping up against this quote for quite a while, for a couple of years now. And every time I come to it, it seems to have a little bit different message to me. And so sometimes when I think about it, it reminds me of the 30 years I spent in the space industry. I worked in TRW, it's now Northrop Grumman, Space Park in Redondo Beach, made satellites, all of that stuff. And so I know a little bit about the space business. And one of the things that I noticed about it is that even though it has very specific requirements, when you're making things for space, somehow some of that stuff leaks out into the real world, right? Into you and I's world. And it's kind of like this synergy of events, because you're doing one thing and you get this other thing as a bonus, right? So sometimes when you shoot for the moon, you get that kind of a bonus. I was thinking about the original moon race, and that was back in the 60s. And at that time, they decided in 1962 that they were going to build this command module, and they were going to send people to the moon and back. And they said they needed a computer for the command module. Well, the command module, if you've ever seen it, fits in this corner over here. In 1962, a computer would have fit into this room, right? And so they needed to shrink that computer down, and they did, and that's what allowed us to have personal computers at home, right? And our PCs and our laptops. And then I also thought back to July 20th, 1969, and I was a little kid, and I was sitting there on the floor next to the television, just as close as I could get there without my mom reaching and snatching me back. And I was there because I was watching Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon. And what I know is that event and all the events that led up to it, all the work that led up to it, it inspired generations of young people to go into math and into science and into engineering. I know because I'm one of them, right? And so we get a lot of benefits when we shoot for the moon. We might be looking for this one material object, and we'll find all these other things come into our life. And that's a great thing. But there's another way of looking at it, which is Norman Vincent Peale was born in 1898. 1898, a long time ago. And then there are other people who have that same shoot for the moon quote. You know, they add something else on the end of it. It goes all the way back to the Civil War. And in fact, Emerson has a shoot for the moon type of quote. And so what I know is for those people like Emerson, they never expected to actually get to the moon. There was no way if they shot for the moon that they were ever going to get there. But what I know and what I've seen in my own life is when I choose to shoot for the moon, when I choose to stretch myself out to do something that seems so wildly impossible to me, that I expand, right? Shoot for the moon, you land among the stars. That's what Norman Vincent Peale said. And if you land among the stars, you're landing among the celestial being, the body of all that there is. And you are expanded. I am expanded. So shoot for the moon means that you can either get material good in your life or you can be expanded. Now, today, I want to talk a little bit more about that. How do we live in a more expanded life through that shoot for the moon attitude? But I also want to talk about hope. Because to me, shoot for the moon is absolutely this desire to be more. And it brings to me, a lot of hope. And I also want to talk about what it is and how it is that we can bring hope more into our lives and what that means and what it looks like. So I want to talk for a few minutes about somebody that I know you'll know. In fact, I heard after the first service that Reverend Juanita read this entire poem from Maya Angelou last week. And so Maya Angelou, I love her poetry. And the first time I was introduced to Maya Angelou was in 1993, watching television. I saw her on TV at Bill Clinton's inaugural address, his ceremony. And he had asked her to write a poem specifically for that and to read it there on the stage. And she did. She wrote a poem called On the Pulse of the Morning. And when I watched her, I really don't remember much about that poem, but the thing that I got out of listening to her speak, listening to her read that poem, was that there are layers upon layers upon layers of meaning in poetry. And it inspired me to go back and read more of her poems, and some of her poems are my favorite poems now. But it wasn't her poetry that drew me to include her in this talk today. What drew me to include her in the talk was that I was looking for a story about hope. Because shoot for the moon, remember I said it reminded me of hope. So I was looking for hope, and I was looking through my bookshelves, looking for something that I could put in about hope. And I didn't find anything on the bookshelves, so I went to my Kindle, and I'm looking through the books in the Kindle, and one of the titles just popped out at me. It was, I Know Why a Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. Now, I had never read that. Never read the book before. I had bought it about a year before and had intended to read it, but I hadn't read it yet. But what I know is that I was being pulled from here, from my heart. It was saying, there's something about hope here in this book. Something that I need to include in this talk. So I read it. I always listen to those things, those messages of intuition. And I read it, and I started reading the first few pages, and what I found is that Maya Angelou was born in April of 1928. So she'd be 90 years old if she was alive today. And that just gives you an idea. This book is an autobiography of her, so it gives you an idea of the time frame. She's talking mostly about the 1930s in the book. And in this book, it talks about her living in a place called Stamps, Arkansas. Now, if you're familiar with the South in the 1930s, for a little black girl to be living in the South, she would have been living in poverty, discrimination, racism, segregation, abuse. And that's actually the story that's in that book. Now, I was looking for hope. I'm scratching my head a little bit. All right. Then I realized that I had a history with Arkansas. I have quite a history with Arkansas, actually, because when I was 6 years old, I moved to Arkansas. I moved to a little town, Willisville, Arkansas, a tiny little dot of a town on the map. And it had a general store and a gas station. That was about it. And we had a ranch. And the most memorable thing out of that ranch was that we had pigs, and there was this one hog named Charlie that was more interested in eating my brother and I than he was in eating the pig slop. Yeah, he'd chase us around like you wouldn't believe. Anyway, so I recognized that I had a little bit of history there, but I had something else. I adopted 3 children altogether. The first 2 boys out of foster care had been born in Hot Springs, Arkansas. They were biological brothers, and when I adopted them, I found that they had grandparents in Hot Springs. They had 3 half-brothers in Hot Springs, and so we decided that each year we would go to Hot Springs, Arkansas on Thanksgiving. 2 days there, 5 days, 2 days driving there, 5 days there, 2 days driving back. And we did that for years. And so I have a bit of history with Arkansas, as I said. And so the thing I recognize is that I understood Maya Angelou's story then. Because when I lived in Arkansas, it was still segregated. I looked up the town of Stamps, Arkansas, and I was really surprised to find that Stamps, Arkansas was less than 15 miles away from Willisville, Arkansas. And so I really felt akin to her. And I know that when I was in Arkansas in 1967, even though the Civil Rights Act had been passed in 1964, even though Brown versus the Board of Education was decided in 1956, Willisville, Arkansas was still segregated. The school, there were no black children in my school. They had another school, right? And so I actually identify, and the book helps a lot because the book is so good. It's like poetry in motion. It's so good at leading you in and letting you know exactly what the people were thinking at that moment. So I got to the end of the book, and I recognized that I personally did not find any hope in that book. And I was really flummoxed because I had been guided by my intuition to read this book to find hope. And so I sat with that for more than a day, and then all of a sudden I got the aha. And the aha was, what the hope wasn't in the book. The hope is in her poetry. And in her poetry, there is so much hope. I want to read you just the first snippet of the poem that Reverend Juanita read you last week. It's Still I Rise. It says, "You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise." And what I recognized from that poem is there's a lot of hope in that poem. And what I recognized is that it took someone like Maya Angelou with her history to have written that poem. Now, I want to be really clear on this. Maya Angelou did not create with her mind segregation and racism and poverty. But she lived through it. She lived through it because there were millions of people in America at that time that believed in that. But what she did, the part that she played in this, was that she had a choice. And she expressed those choices. And as we know, God always supports us in our choices. She had a choice to get a good education. It's amazing, the education that she gave herself in Stamps, Arkansas. She's one of the most best read as far as a child, of what I can tell from the book. I thought I read a lot of books. She read even more. And so she chose that. And then when she grew up, past the book itself, right? The book was just her childhood. This book, there's more books I'm going to have to read. But she chose to be a poet. She could have chosen something else. She chose to be a poet. And on top of that, when she chose to write her poetry, she chose to write poetry that lifted people up, that gave people hope, that gave people life. And you know, the way things work is God wastes nothing. God wasted none of her childhood, none of her experiences, and it is the divine that's writing that poem, I am sure. It's the life that God is, touching us at our very heart. So, I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about my own life, and where is it that in my life there are places where I don't think there's any hope, and yet there is. Things from the past, way back past, or things from yesterday. There's things that I don't always seem to think and see the hope in that moment, but there is hope. There's always, always, always hope. And I'm sure that's true for you too. So I want to talk for a moment about a story that I heard on NPR the other day. It's a local news story, and so you might have heard about it too. It happened last week. It's a story of Jesse Hernandez, who was a 13-year-old boy playing with some friends in Griffith Park, and he was walking across a piece of wood, and it broke underneath him, and he plunged 25 feet down into the sewers. And I heard about this on NPR, and I heard it from the tale was being told by Captain Eric Scott of the LA Fire Department. And the reason it stuck with me was because he told this story. It was obvious that he had so much hope the entire time that he was doing the rescue, the search and rescue. He was leading that effort up. He had hope going the entire time. And so as he explains, when Jesse fell down, he fell 25 feet to begin with, and then he landed in this maze of sewer pipes that are 4 feet wide, waist deep in water. The water's running 15 miles an hour, and he could be anywhere, and there's noxious gas down there. And so they knew they had to go find him quickly. And they scurried, they got people from the fire department, they got specialists from the city who had maps of the sewer system, they got people that had cameras that they could put down into the sewer lines. They did this all quickly. And then it was the wee hours of the morning, and they didn't go home. They didn't say, I'm tired. They didn't say, I haven't had anything to eat. They didn't say it's cold out here, because they had hope. They had the hope of finding this boy alive and well, pushing them forward. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, they found handprints on the pipes with the cameras. And so they were able to narrow things down, and then they opened a trap door, and there, looking up at them, was Jesse Hernandez, alive and well. So the point of the story is that there's always hope. There's always hope, and when we have hope, and when we bring hope up to every situation, in every moment of our day, in every aspect of our life, not just when we are reaching for the moon, shooting for the moon, but when we're doing the small, mundane things of our life, when we're dealing with our family, there is hope. And so I want to leave you with one last quote from Ernest Holmes, our founder. He says, yesterday is not, tomorrow is not. But today, bright with hope and filled with promise, is mine. Today I live. And so what I want to do is I want to encourage you today to go out from here and to think about, where is it that you could shoot for the moon? And you should have gotten one of these Star Cruisers when you walked in today. You know, it's just a reminder for you. And where is it that you can shoot for the moon, and by that, find a purpose, find hope in every situation, and know that you are the life that God is, that it is moving through you and as you. And if that is true, then you live a God-filled life that is bright with hope and filled with promise. Thank you, and namaste. Yesterday is not. Tomorrow is not. And promise, bright with promise.
This is a piece that I picked out especially, and you know, sometimes musicians we play stuff that we play for ourselves every once in a while, and this is one of those pieces. Basically, the Pat Metheny group throughout the '90s explored, you know, amazing territory musically, and expanded the entire language and of jazz, and they synthesized all kinds of things to put their music together. And so this piece, and when I first came to LA, I, you know, about 12 years ago, as an aspiring, you know, studio violinist, you know, with I wanted to be a versatile musician who did all kinds of things. And at one of the parties with the violinists who play jazz, who play classical, who play country, you know, basically we're supposed to go walk into the studio and boom, you know, play like Stefan Grappelli, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. But anyway, so it's very ambitious of us, and I have friends, who were, very, very kind to me when I first came, and one of them, at one of our musician parties, gave me the Speaking of Now album by the Pat Metheny Group. This is cut number 1, As It Is, and we want to welcome Caitlin Chu, an 11th grader on cello.
bumps. That was beautiful. God bumps. Absolutely beautiful. It's amazing how much talent there is in the world, isn't it? Isn't it wonderful that Spirit provides us with these great gifts and we get to hear them and experience them? And for those of you that are students right now, you've got such a bright future ahead of you. How wonderful for you to have a performing arts school to really express yourselves in. I want to say good morning. I'm up here to say mahalo, which is Hawaiian for thank you, and aloha, which means a lot of things. It means hello, goodbye, I love you, I have a spirit of love, all of these wonderful words, and they all apply to all of you today. And I asked if I could just have a few minutes today because this is my last Sunday here with you for a while. I'm sure I'll come back to visit from now and then, but we are on our way to this big adventure, moving to the Hawaiian island of Kauai, the Garden Island. And although we won't actually fly out until the 25th, our schedule now is such that we won't always be right around the area. So I wanted to just take a moment with all of you to say thank you. I had been in and out of this church for many years too, and when I was a student, actually I interned here for a while, and we also had some classes here for a while, and we all learned how to operate the soundboard here, the old one, not the one you have now. That was where we learned how to be sound technicians. You know, we had to learn everything. You have to wear all the hats, including how to clean the toilet when you're a minister, so that was a part of it. And when I came here in 2006 to take an interim position for 6 months to a year, how did that turn out? I just found this wonderful, warm, rich welcome that I just knew I was home and truly at home. And although I'd been in this teaching for a long time and had served another church, this just felt like the perfect fit. And after my time period here as full-time senior minister, and we brought in Reverend Josh, and then I just gradually stepped back as he stepped in, I loved that I didn't have to leave. I loved that I still got to be part of this community because it was my community. It was my family. You are my family. And I started thinking this morning about the progression from Dodie Deerenforth and the Devone and Dwayne Cox and Reverend Margie, of course, and Lee Height and Pat King, and then myself and Reverend Josh, and there are probably some others that I've left out there. But there's this procession and progression in a spiritual community that's just a natural part of the evolution of it. When I first came here, there were only 3 practitioners, Judy Miller, Jean Lohman, and Frida Wright, and all of them now have made their transitions. I always look over at this side because somehow I expect I'm still going to see them there. And of course they're there in spirit, but others are occupying their space. We are, as a community, as a spiritual community, it's like we're a living organism. We breathe and we expand, and sometimes we contract. And just like the natural flow of energy on the planet, there's times when it's stormy and times when it's sunny. And we've gone through all that together through these years. And the people in the seats have evolved and changed, and we've seen new people come in, and others have moved on to some other place. And it's all a part of the natural progress of any community. Its health is in you. Its health is, you are this. You are the center. And those who become your spiritual leaders are those who help to guide you through this journey we call life. But we're not the church. You are. So as I take this step away today, I feel like it's the perfect time because you're starting your candidating next week. You're stepping into a new era. It's only right that I should be going and someone new should be coming. And as you listen to your speakers, as you do the work, you've already done so much good work. And I've seen these processes for years in other centers and churches. You're doing a really good job of it. You've done very well with it. And you've stayed strong and healthy through it. And thanks to your leadership council, you have really done a good job. So, yes, let's give them a hand. So as you evaluate these 3 people that have been chosen as your candidates, please do it with an open mind. Please do it with the idea of, do they fit this statement that we have written, this vision of who we are and who we are wanting to attract? And then when that person is finally selected, whoever it may be, if it's not the person you wanted, give them your heart anyway. Give them your full support. Give them the opportunity to do what they came here to do, which is to love you and to remember God. That's basically it. And then give that support to that person. I have experienced this myself, of being compared to someone else who isn't even living anymore. I went through that for years. To be punished for something somebody else did wrong that I didn't do. But nonetheless, that's my own personal experience I'm sharing with you. Most of my experience has been wonderful. Don't evaluate a person on the basis of somebody else. Evaluate them on who they are, whoever they are, because they are here by divine appointment. They are here by divine right of consciousness, and this consciousness has chosen whoever that person will be. Love them and welcome them. Give them whatever it is that they need for your support so that they can do their very best job of supporting all of you. So I thank you. I love you. I'm going to miss you all. But I'll be living on the island of Kauai. We don't own a 40-room mansion where I can give you all a room, but I'll be glad to help you find a place to stay and come and have lunch or breakfast or dinner with you. So I just love you, and I'm going to miss you all. You really have my heart. This will always be my jewel by the sea, and I will always remember it with great love. Thank you. I did this at first service. I forgot it's time for the offering, and they asked me to do it. Oh, boy. I even had it in my hand to remind myself. So please give generously to this beautiful community. That's how we are sustained, is by your gift. So take your gift out in your hand and bless it. Give thanks for it. Bless every hand that brought this gift to you, and in that way we bless the world. And then join with me in saying, divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I am prospered. Thank you, God.
That was beautiful. Thank you. Hi, my name is Maury, and I'm a practitioner here at Seal Beach. And I would like to let you know that if anyone needs prayer, there will be practitioners lined up on the wall after service that would love to pray with you. And if you would like to write out your prayers, there's a prayer box and prayer sheets on the other side of this wall. And practitioners will pray for you all week long. I would like to ask the ministers and practitioners to stand right now and join me in prayer. I know that spirit and love resides in each and every soul that is attended here today. I am so grateful for this day and this center and this service, for I know I hold the truth for each and every soul here today and their loving energy. And I give a special blessing for each one that goes out for the rest of the day. For I give thanks for each and every one. And together we say, and so it is.
I know we have kids back there. Watch our filter back there.